You can dedicate your whole life to someone, build a home together, share dreams, raise a child, only to realize one day that they were never really with you. Not fully. Not truly. And sometimes, betrayal doesn't come in the form of screams or slammed doors. Sometimes, it walks quietly through your front door while you're gone, wearing your robe, drinking from your favorite mug and letting your child call her mom. My name is Elise Carter. 35 years old. Senior business consultant. Mother of one perfect 6-year-old boy, Nathan. And, until 2 weeks ago, I thought I had the kind of life people envied. My husband, Dean Carter, had always been charming. Polished, professional, with the kind of smile that could melt tension out of any room. We met at a networking event nearly 10 years ago. I fell fast like so many others probably had before me. But unlike the rest, I thought I was the one he chose to build forever with. We had our struggles. What couple doesn't? The late nights. The deadlines. The missed anniversaries. But I believed we were a team hustling together for a better future. I was wrong. I was so painfully wrong. Started with a conference. A major one in Chicago. 2 weeks. High-stakes client meetings. Workshops. A chance to pitch a multi-million-dollar transformation strategy. I'd been preparing for months and Dean was supportive. Almost too supportive. You need this, he'd said. Go shine, babe. I've got Nathan. We'll be just fine. I remember kissing them goodbye at the airport. Nathan hugged me tight and Dean stood behind him, one hand on his shoulder, the other holding his phone, texting someone. I didn't think much of it. I should have. The first few days were smooth. Video calls with Nathan every evening, filled with his giggles and bedtime stories. But on the 5th day something shifted. He didn't want to talk. Said he was tired. The next day the call was shorter. Then it stopped altogether. I called Dean. No answer. I texted. Read but no reply. My chest began to tighten with the kind of anxiety that doesn't make sense at first. You try to rationalize. Maybe he's busy. Maybe Nathan's sick. Maybe nothing is wrong. But then came the moment that shattered everything. It was a colleague who sent me the picture. A mutual friend of mine and Dean's, Marcy, who happened to be grabbing coffee from the little cafe 2 blocks from our house. She snapped a picture of Dean sitting with a woman outside, legs crossed toward him, her hand over his on the table and Nathan between them, holding her other hand. I stared at the photo for a full minute before I realized I'd stopped breathing. The woman was Emma. Emma Hughes. His assistant. His so-called work wife. I knew her. I'd met her twice at office events. She always had that overly familiar air, the kind that made you wonder if the joke they just laughed at was one only the two of them understood. But I never thought. She was just his assistant. At least that's what I told myself back then. I didn't reply to Marcy. I didn't even respond to her, "Is everything okay?" message. I closed my laptop, left the conference room mid-prep session and took the next flight home. I didn't tell anyone. Not my team. Not my boss. I just ran. And when I opened the door to my home, our home, it wasn't Dean who greeted me. It was her. Emma. Wearing my t-shirt. No pants. Her hair up in a bun, damp like she'd just gotten out of my shower. Oh, she blinked, startled as if I was the intruder. You're back early. I didn't speak. My suitcase slipped from my hand, thudding against the hardwood floor. From behind her, I heard the patter of small feet. Mommy. Nathan squealed, rushing toward me. I dropped to my knees, clutching him tight. I buried my face in his soft curls, blinking back tears. But then he looked back over his shoulder at Emma. She's here, Mom, too. My heart stopped. Told her, what? I stood slowly looking at Emma. She had the nerve to smile, tight-lipped and smug. Not apologetic. Not even ashamed. Kids get confused, she said casually. Dean and I thought it would be easier if... If what? I snapped. My voice was shaking now. If he moved you into my house, my bedroom, or my clothes, took my son. The sound of the front door opening cut me off. Dean walked in wearing that same calm expression I used to think was strength. Now it felt more like smugness. Elise, he said, setting his keys on the table like nothing had happened. You're early. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I didn't. I stood still, perfectly still, while the truth unraveled around me like a badly tied ribbon. So this is what you meant by, "I've got Nathan"? Elise, you've been so focused on work, he said with a sigh, like I was the problem. You're always gone. Emma's been here to help. For Nathan's sake. For Nathan's sake? I repeated, my voice dangerously low. Is that what you tell yourself to sleep at night? That screwing your assistant in our bed was for our son's benefit? Dean flinched, but only slightly. Emma placed a hand on his arm. She's being irrational, she whispered. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked. Clean and sharp. Like glass splintering under pressure. I turned to Nathan, who was watching with wide eyes. Baby, I said, kneeling again, go to your room for a minute. Mommy just needs to talk to Daddy and Miss Emma. He hesitated. Emma started to say something, but Dean nodded. Go ahead, bud. We'll call you when we're done. Once he was gone, I straightened, eyes blazing. I want you out of my house, I said to Emma. Now. And take your toothbrush, your lies, and whatever twisted fantasy you were playing at with you. Elise, Dean started, but I held up a hand. No. Don't speak. I'm not your wife anymore. Not from this second. He blinked, stunned. You're overreacting. I laughed. A short, humorless sound. No, Dean. I'm just reacting. For the first time in years, I'm finally reacting. I walked upstairs, packed Emma's things into one of my spare duffels and tossed it down the stairs. It landed at her feet with a satisfying thud. Out. Emma glared at me, but she left. She had to. She didn't belong here. Dean tried to argue, but I didn't listen. I locked the bedroom door behind me, sat on the edge of the bed that suddenly felt foreign, and let the tears fall. Silent. Hot. Cleansing. That night I didn't sleep. I watched Nathan curled up next to me, innocent and unaware of the storm he'd been caught in. And I made a decision. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't beg. I would bury him. Not in the ground, but in every way that mattered. His reputation. His career. His false image of control. I would take back everything he thought he stole while I was gone. And when I was done, he'd wish I had screamed. Revenge isn't rage. It's clarity. It's waking up the morning after betrayal with eyes no longer blurred by trust. It's realizing that your silence is more terrifying than your screams. That your restraint is a weapon. The morning after I kicked Emma out of my home, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror and stared at the woman I'd become. Elise Carter, business strategist, high performer, wife and mother. Or at least I used to be the wife part. My cheeks were sunken from the stress, eyes swollen from crying, but somewhere in that reflection, I saw steel. I saw a woman reborn in the ashes of her husband's lies. And I whispered to her, they think you're broken. Let them. Dean had underestimated me. Of course he had. He'd always seen me as the responsible one, the peacemaker, the one who picked up the pieces after every one of his missteps. But this time I wouldn't be picking anything up. I'd be tearing it down, starting with the image he'd built around himself. I didn't go back to work immediately. I called my boss and requested to work remotely for a week. He didn't question it. I'd earned the goodwill after years of consistent excellence. That was my first blessing. I still had my independence. The second came when I logged into our joint bank account. Dean must have gotten cocky. He'd set up an automatic transfer to Emma. Weekly payments labeled childcare support. Childcare? The woman had been living in my house while pretending to be my son's mother. I downloaded the bank statements. Every penny. Then I accessed our home security system. Thank God I was the one who set it up and never gave him full admin rights. I went back through the footage of the 2 weeks I'd been away. Every frame, every moment. Emma arriving on the third day. Her walking around in my clothes. Her kissing Dean in the kitchen. My stomach turned, but I didn't look away. I needed proof. Not emotion. I compiled everything into folders. Bank records, affair. Security footage, infidelity. Evidence, false claims about childcare. Then came the hard part. Nathan. He was quieter than usual. Reserved. He didn't ask about Emma and I didn't bring her up. But I knew what had happened had impacted him in ways I couldn't see yet. One evening, as we sat on the couch reading his favorite dinosaur book, he looked up at me and said, Mom? Is it bad that I called her Mommy? My heart fractured. I closed the book gently. No, baby. It's not bad. You didn't know. And you were just trying to be nice. But remember, there's only one real mommy, right? He nodded, small and solemn. You. I kissed his forehead and held back tears. That was when I knew I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for him. For his sense of truth, safety, and the sanctity of what a family should really mean. Dean came back 2 nights after I kicked Emma out. He didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. Just walked into the living room while I was folding Nathan's laundry and said, "We need to talk." "Do we?" I said without looking up. "Elise, I get that you're angry, but this can't be the end of us. You left. You've been away more than home. Emma was just, she helped." I folded another shirt. Helped. I repeated. "You're calling what happened help?" "She was there for me. For Nathan. I didn't plan it, it just happened." "Of course," I said, looking at him now. "Because you're a man of such weak will that women just fall into your bed by accident." "Elise, come on." "No," I cut him off, standing now. "Don't you dare, Elise, come on me. You didn't just cheat. You introduced another woman to our son. Let him call her mom. You let her live in my home like she belonged here. And you thought I'd what, swallow it? Forgive it like before." He blinked. "Before?" I smiled. "You really thought I didn't know about Miami?" His jaw tightened. "Or the late nights with clients, who mysteriously don't exist on your calendar?" "Elise." I shook my head. "You've been sloppy, Dean. For a man who plays chess at the office, you're surprisingly terrible at strategy at home." He stepped closer. "So what now? You're going to take Nathan away from me?" "No," I said. "You're going to do that yourself." He frowned. "What the hell does that mean?" I leaned in, my voice steady and slow. "It means you're going to give me full custody, sign over the house, and keep your distance. Or I go to your company with the evidence I've gathered." His face paled. "What evidence?" "Oh, honey," I laughed. "The security footage. The payments to Emma. Her texts. And don't worry, I've made backups." "You'd ruin me." "You ruined yourself," I said. "I'm just giving you the dignity of choosing how this ends." He paced the living room like a caged animal, running a hand through his hair. "I need time," he said. "You have 48 hours. After that, I go public. Your boss. Your board. Hell, even your LinkedIn connections. Let's see how they react to the great Dean Carter playing house with his assistant while his wife was away working." "You've gone cold," he muttered. "No," I said softly. "I've finally stopped burning myself to keep you warm." The next day I went to see a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. Her name was Dana Woodward. Fierce, sharp, and known for annihilating cheaters in court without blinking. The kind of woman who wore red lipstick to depositions and walked out with settlements 3 times larger than expected. I gave her the file I'd compiled. She whistled. "Girl, you came ready." "I want full custody," I said. "And I want to keep the house. I paid the down payment. I've covered half the mortgage for years. I'm not leaving." She nodded. "With this evidence, you'll get it. Judges don't like when mistresses are paraded around kids. Especially when the real mother is the one working her ass off." I felt relief flood me for the first time in weeks. "But," she said, raising a finger, "don't confront him again. Let me handle it from here. He'll get a notice. And if he tries anything, shows up, we file for a restraining order." I left her office with something better than anger. A plan. That night I looked at myself again in the mirror. I wasn't smiling. But I wasn't sad either. I was awakening. Emma, however, wasn't done. She sent me a message the next morning. An email like the coward she was. Subject, "Just so you know." Message. "I'm not sorry. Dean was never happy with you. He told me things you can't imagine. And Nathan? He adores me. You're a workaholic. You're not fit to be a mom." I stared at the screen. Then I hit forward. To Dana. With one line, more fuel. Then I blocked Emma everywhere. Let her scream into the void. I had more important things to do. Like signing Nathan up for his art classes again. Taking him to the park. Baking cookies on a Tuesday afternoon just because. Rebuilding a life he could be proud of. Dean didn't reply to the initial notice. But he showed up again 2 days later. Angrier, more desperate. "You're destroying my life," he snapped, standing at my front door. I didn't open it. I spoke through the security intercom. "No, Dean. I'm saving mine." "I'll fight you," he threatened. "Good," I replied. I could use a win in court. He stood there for another minute. Then walked away. I haven't seen him since. But I'm not done. Not yet. Because Emma? She's still working at his company. And the affair? It's about to become very public. You see, I didn't just send the evidence to Dana. I sent it to someone else too. The company's ethics committee. And I added one more note. While his wife was away on company business, your executive director used PTO hours to host his assistant in the marital home, while committing time theft and misusing departmental funds. Attached are receipts and footage. Sometimes revenge isn't a grand explosion. Sometimes it's a quiet detonation beneath the surface. The kind that caves everything in. And I'm just getting started. Revenge doesn't knock. It slips through the cracks. Quiet. Calculated. And by the time you realize the air's gone still, the damage is already done. Dean Carter had always thrived in control. He was the man who ran board meetings like Broadway shows. Polished, practiced, rehearsed. He wore confidence like armor. Until the day he walked into his office, expecting coffee and compliance, and found silence instead. It was Wednesday morning when the HR director, Patrice Lanning, called Dean into a meeting. Not his usual corner office, not the glass conference room where he liked to perform his power plays. No. It was the small internal investigation room on the third floor, the one with no windows and only one chair. 3 people were already waiting inside. Patrice, the company's legal counsel, and a member of the ethics committee. Dean walked in trying to keep his composure. "Morning," he said, attempting a smile. "Please have a seat, Mr. Carter," Patrice said, her expression unreadable. He sat. Foley. "We received a formal complaint regarding inappropriate workplace conduct, misuse of company funds, and breach of professional boundaries with an employee under your direct supervision." Dean blinked. "Excuse me." They slid a folder across the table. Inside was everything. Screenshots of his transfers to Emma, emails sent during office hours, timestamped security footage with her in his home, with Nathan. The ethics complaint had been thorough. Ruthless. "What the hell is this?" he asked, voice rising. Patrice didn't flinch. "This is your opportunity to respond. Your assistant, Emma Hughes, has been placed on immediate suspension pending investigation. You are now on administrative leave. Company policy requires you to surrender your access badges, corporate laptop and phone." Dean's face drained of color. He opened his mouth to speak but stopped. Because he knew who did it. Meanwhile, I was sitting at home with a glass of lemon water, listening to Nathan giggle from the living room while watching a dinosaur cartoon. I hadn't smiled that freely in weeks. But today I allowed myself one. Then my phone buzzed. "Unknown number. I hope you're proud of yourself." I stared at the screen, then blocked the number. It buzzed again moments later. Another number. "Dean, you've humiliated me. They're investigating everything. Are you seriously trying to ruin my entire career?" I replied with one sentence. "I'm not ruining anything you didn't already destroy yourself." Then I put the phone down and looked out the window. The cherry blossoms were blooming, soft pink petals dancing in the breeze like confetti from the universe celebrating my clarity. But even victories have shadows. Later that night I received a call from Dana, my lawyer. "Elise, there's something you need to know," she said. Dean filed a motion. I sat up straighter. "What kind of motion?" "He's petitioning for joint custody. Claims you're emotionally unstable, overworked, and creating a hostile environment." My heart dropped. "On what grounds?" I asked. "He's the one who had an affair in front of our son." "Yes," Dana said, "but men like Dean? They don't give up quietly. He's backed into a corner and cornered men bite. He'll use everything, your travel schedule, any missed events with Nathan, even the tone of your emails if he can." For a moment I couldn't breathe. "But I've done everything right," I whispered. "I know," she said. "But court isn't always about right. It's about proof. And performance. Which means we need to be ready." I hung up and sat alone in my bedroom, surrounded by folders of evidence, case notes, and 1,000 questions. But one thought cut through it all. I didn't come this far to be silenced now. Over the next week I gathered character references. Friends, neighbors, Nathan's preschool teacher, even our pediatrician. Every one of them wrote about my devotion, my patience, my love for my son. Not one mentioned Dean. I also started therapy. Not because I needed to prove anything to the court, but because I finally realized I deserved to heal. For once, I wasn't doing it for appearances. I was doing it for me. And something shifted. The sessions became an anchor. A place to grieve, not just Dean's betrayal but the version of me that allowed it for so long. The woman who begged for scraps of affection while handing over loyalty like gold. She was gone now. And in her place stood someone far more dangerous. Someone whole. Then came the email that nearly broke me. It was from Emma. The subject line, "Don't pretend you've won." The body, "You think this is over? That just because Dean's job is on the line you've destroyed us? He still loves me, Elise. You were just convenient. Always traveling. He needed warmth. Passion. And he found it, with me. Peace. Nathan cried when I left. He asked for me every day. Think about that while you sit on your throne. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling, not with hurt but rage. She dared use my son's name like that. As a weapon. I printed the email. Added it to the evidence file. And then I made a decision. I was going to end this. Publicly. 2 days later, the company held its quarterly charity gala. A formal, media-heavy event Dean had helped organize every year. Everyone would be there. The board. The executives. The donors. His image mattered more than ever. He wasn't officially fired yet, but his fate hung in the balance. And I planned to tip the scale. I put on a sleek black dress. Timeless. Powerful. Paired it with scarlet lipstick and heels that made the floor tremble with every step. As I walked into the ballroom, conversations paused. People turned. Elise. Someone gasped. I smiled, calm and poised. Evening. Dean was already there, standing near the stage talking to someone from PR. He turned the second he saw me and froze. I walked up slowly. Eyes locked. Controlled. Deadly. Hello, Dean, I said. Elise, he said, voice tight. This isn't the place. Exactly, I whispered. This is the stage you built. Let's set it on fire. Before he could stop me, I stepped past him and onto the podium. The room quieted. I tapped the microphone. Good evening, everyone. I know I'm not scheduled to speak tonight, but if you'll indulge me for just a moment. Dean stepped forward, but the board chair placed a hand on his arm. Let her speak. I took a deep breath. I want to share a story. A personal one. About betrayal, resilience, and clarity. 2 weeks ago, while I was away representing my company at a conference, my husband moved his assistant into our home. Introduced her to our 6-year-old as his new mom. He paid her with our joint funds, used company hours to entertain her, and allowed her to live in the house I built, while I was away earning for our future. A few gasps. A few murmurs. I continued. This isn't just a personal issue. It's a workplace one. A power imbalance. A misuse of resources. A breach of trust. The man in question stands before you now. And if your organization values integrity, perhaps you'll consider what leadership truly looks like. I stepped down. Quiet. Composed. Dean was red. Silent. And surrounded. Emma wasn't there. Her absence was the loudest statement of all. The board chair nodded at me once. Later that night I received the news. Dean was officially terminated. But my revenge wasn't just about firing them. It was about freeing myself. At home I tucked Nathan into bed. He looked up sleepily and said, Mommy? You're strong like the T-Rex. I smiled. Even stronger, baby. And I meant it. Because sometimes when someone buries you in lies, the only thing left to do is rise like thunder. And when I rose, I didn't just burn bridges. I lit the whole empire on fire. You don't truly know how vicious someone can be until they feel powerless. Dean had lost his job, his reputation, and the respect of everyone who once hung on to his every word. But he wasn't finished. No, men like him never admit defeat, they just change the battlefield. And now he was coming for the only thing I'd die for. Nathan. The first sign came in the form of a thick envelope delivered to my doorstep, hand-stamped and sealed with cold precision. I opened it slowly, my stomach sinking before I even unfolded the papers. Petition for emergency joint custody hearing. Dean was claiming that I had manipulated the situation, intentionally alienated him from our son, and that I was emotionally unstable due to work-induced stress and recent erratic behavior. He even had witness statements attached. One from an old neighbor who hadn't seen Dean in months but described me as cold and distant. One from a so-called friend of Emma's who claimed I yelled at Nathan regularly. Lies. All of it. But strategically crafted lies meant to raise questions. Doubt. And in court, doubt is a disease that spreads fast. I called Dana immediately. She was calm but firm. This is expected. He's playing the victim now. But we're not going to let him twist the narrative. I've done everything right, I said, my voice shaking. He's the one who lied. Who cheated. Who manipulated my child. I know. And we'll prove it. But Elise. Dana paused. We're going to need more than evidence. We need someone who knows Nathan. Who can testify to your parenting and refute these claims firsthand. I thought for a moment. Then I remembered someone. Her name was Mrs. Langley, Nathan's preschool teacher. A retired psychologist turned early childhood educator, she had always adored Nathan and respected how I parented him. She once told me, "You're one of the most intentional mothers I've met. Firm but loving. Protective, not possessive." I met her at the small park near her home that Saturday morning. She brought warm coffee in a thermos and sat with me on the bench while I explained everything. When I finished, she placed a hand gently on mine. "Elise," she said, "if the court needs a voice for Nathan's well-being, I'll be that voice. I've seen how you raise him. I've seen how he flourishes with you. And if Dean or that woman ever tried to replace you in his heart, they failed. Because you're his anchor." Tears burned behind my eyes. "Thank you." The court date arrived sooner than I expected. I wore a navy blue suit. Clean, professional. I wanted them to see me not as the emotional ex-wife, but as a mother with clarity, strength, and focus. Dean arrived 10 minutes late, Emma by his side, though not called as a witness. Her presence was just another mind game, a silent smirk in lip gloss and heels. When the judge entered, everyone rose. The courtroom smelled like wood polish and tension. Dean's lawyer began with a carefully rehearsed monologue about restoring balance for a father unjustly removed from his son's life. He called on the neighbor who spoke vaguely about how she often heard the boy crying and how I seemed on edge. Dana didn't even flinch. When it was our turn, she called Mrs. Langley. And the tide shifted. Her testimony was calm, factual, but brimming with quiet power. I've seen Elise pick Nathan up after long days with the same warmth and attention as any stay-at-home parent. I've seen her attend every parent-teacher event, every project presentation. Nathan never speaks of his father with the same comfort or familiarity. But when he talks about Elise, it's always with joy, pride, and a sense of safety. Then Dana presented the security footage. Emma in our home in my robe, Nathan beside her. The judge frowned. Dean looked rattled. But the moment that broke everything came next. Dana pulled out the printed email, the one Emma had sent me bragging about Nathan asking for her. "This is unsolicited communication," Dana said. "Not only does it show manipulation but emotional cruelty. Using a child as a pawn. This," she said holding up the page, "is not the voice of someone concerned for Nathan. It's the voice of someone obsessed with control." The judge called for a short recess. Dean glared at me across the room. "You think you're so clever," he hissed when we passed each other outside the courtroom. "No," I said calmly. "I'm just no longer scared of you." When the judge returned, she didn't waste time. After reviewing the evidence, the witness statements, and considering the environment in which the minor child was placed during the petitioner's unsupervised visits, this court finds the request for joint custody to be denied. Sole legal and physical custody will remain with the mother. Visitation rights for the father will be re-evaluated after a 6-month monitored period. Dean slumped in his seat. Emma stood furious. I didn't even look at her. She no longer mattered. The courtroom cleared slowly. Outside, Dana hugged me tightly. "You did it." "No," I said softly. "We did." Back home, Nathan was waiting. I scooped him into my arms and kissed his cheek. He smelled like peanut butter and crayons. "Did you win, Mommy?" I smiled. "We both did." Then he whispered something that melted every last shard of hurt in me. "I missed you every day. I told the moon to tell you good night." I held him tighter, tears wetting my shoulder. "You'll never have to miss me again, baby. I promise." But even with Dean legally out of my space, the emotional aftermath lingered like smoke after a fire. I still woke up at 3 a.m. heart pounding, half expecting another bombshell. So I began therapy for Nathan too. Gentle sessions with a specialist who used play to help him process the chaos he'd been pulled into. He told her everything. How Emma would give him mommy rules, like not calling me when I was gone. How Dean said I didn't love him as much because I worked too much. How Emma once took him to the mall and let strangers think he was her son. When the therapist shared this with me, my blood turned to ice. They hadn't just betrayed me, they had tried to rewrite my child's sense of reality. But not anymore. Now I had the truth. And I was finally building a life no one could sabotage again. Weeks passed. Dean tried once more, sent an email begging to start fresh, saying he wanted to be a better man. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to Dana for the records. Emma vanished from our town. Deleted her social media. Quit the job she landed post-scandal. I never heard from her again. And Dean? Word spread. His blacklisting wasn't loud, but effective. Silent phone calls. Cancelled interviews. Whispers of ethics complaints. In a corporate world where reputation was everything, he became untouchable. One by one, the doors he had always walked through with charm and arrogance slammed shut. As for me, I started writing. At first just journal entries. Then an op-ed on motherhood and corporate double standards that went viral. Then came the speaking offers. Panels. Webinars. I didn't just rebuild, I rose. People called me strong. But it wasn't strength. It was survival sharpened into brilliance. It was heartbreak hammered into steel. And somewhere along the way I found something unexpected. Peace. Not the absence of noise, but the calm that comes when you know the storm can't reach you anymore. And in that peace, love began to grow. Not the desperate kind that clings, but a slow-burning flame. Respectful. That story is still unfolding. But for now, I go to sleep with Nathan curled beside me, the moonlight casting soft silver across our room. No lies. No fear. Just us. And Dean? He's nothing but a cautionary tale now. Because the day he moved her in, he thought he was burying me. But he forgot. Some women are seeds. And we bloom in fire. Not all ghosts haunt you. Some knock one last time, hoping for a door that no longer exists. And when you don't answer, that's when you know you've won. It had been 3 months since the courtroom decision. Since Dean lost custody. Since Emma disappeared like the bad dream she'd always been. And in those months, something inside me healed in quiet, powerful ways. I'd found a new rhythm, one without anxiety gnawing at my chest. Nathan laughed more now. He started sleeping through the night again. And as for me, I finally looked in the mirror and didn't see a woman trying to survive. I saw a woman who had already made it through the storm. But peace has a price. And sometimes the past tries to cash in. It was a Wednesday evening. I was just finishing up dinner, pasta and garlic bread, Nathan's favorite, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I nearly ignored it. But something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe closure, made me pick it up. Elise. The voice was familiar. Broken. Dean. I know I don't deserve to call. I need to see you. I didn't say anything. He continued. I lost everything. My job. My reputation. Emma's gone. I've been living in a rental apartment I can't afford, and I'm one mistake away from losing the only thing that ever meant anything to me. I stayed quiet. I miss Nathan, he whispered. There was the card. The one he'd been saving like a weapon wrapped in sorrow. You don't get to miss someone you tried to use, I said finally. You don't get to break something and cry over the pieces. He was quiet. I know, he said. But please. Just 5 minutes. I need to say it to your face. Not to fix it. Just to say it. I don't know why I agreed. Maybe because I wanted to see it. The fall. The ruin. The man who thought I'd never rise again. We met the next day at a quiet public cafe. I chose the spot carefully, neutral ground, open space. No dramatics. No privacy for manipulation. He walked in looking like a ghost of the man he used to be. The tan had faded. The crisp shirts were gone. There were bags under his eyes and a twitch in his jaw. Elise, he said, pulling out the chair across from me. I didn't offer a smile. He sat, rubbing his hands together. Nervous. Maybe cold. Maybe both. I've had time to think, he started. About everything. Good, I said. Because it's the only thing left that belongs to you. He winced. I deserved that. You deserve more than that. But I've given enough. He looked up. Eyes glassy. I didn't think it would unravel this fast. She made me feel like someone again. I raised an eyebrow. And I didn't? She made me feel needed, he said quietly. You were always so strong. So in control. I felt small next to you. There was the truth I'd never heard before. My strength had bruised his ego. And rather than rise with me, he crawled somewhere easier. Then you should have left me, I said. Not lied. Not dragged our son into your mess. You could have walked out with dignity. Instead you chose deceit. You chose her. You chose that. He nodded, eyes damp. I know. And it's too late. I see that now. I leaned forward slightly, voice low but cutting. It's not just too late, Dean. It's over. Whatever you thought we had. Dead. Whatever you thought you could fix. Gone. I wasn't here to beg for you back, he said. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Genuinely. I ruined everything good. And I hope someday Nathan doesn't hate me. He doesn't hate you, I said. Because I'm raising him not to carry the poison you passed down. Dean blinked at me. A single tear slid down his cheek. I stood. That was your 5 minutes. Goodbye, Dean. He didn't stop me. Because he couldn't. 3 months later, I spoke at a National Women's Leadership Summit. I shared my story, not just the betrayal but the comeback. The truth about what strength really looks like. I stood in front of hundreds of women. Some teary-eyed. Some smiling. All listening. And I ended with this. Sometimes the people we love the most will do the deepest damage. But your worth is not measured by their betrayal. It's measured by how you rise after. And if someone tries to bury you in lies, let that be the soil where you grow something stronger. The room erupted into applause. And somewhere in the back I caught a glance of someone I hadn't expected. Daniel Hayes. A friend of a friend. A tech entrepreneur. Kind eyes. Easy laugh. We'd met at a networking dinner weeks ago and kept in touch casually. He waited until the crowd cleared. You were incredible, he said. I smiled, slightly shy. Thank you. Still want to grab that coffee sometime? I paused. Then nodded. Yeah. I think I'm ready. 1 year later, I stood in the backyard of our new home. Nathan running through the sprinkler, Daniel firing up the grill, laughter echoing like music. No ghosts. No games. Just life. His love. And as I leaned against the railing watching my son splash barefoot through the grass, I whispered to myself. I didn't just bury him. I planted myself. And I bloomed. The end.